All right, this is the last part of section 1.3. Just a quick reminder, tomorrow we will be doing a formative quiz, and we will take some time just to go back and review from 1.1 to 1.3. So no new topics tomorrow, but you do need to be ready for a formative quiz. Okay, it's just a paper quiz, you don't need a Chromebook. Our topic today is we're still solving equations, but they're different equations. These ones we call literal equations. They're kind of basically formulas. All right. So instead of solving this formula and getting an answer like x equals 5, we're just going to get a new formula. Okay? For example, if I said, here's my formula, A equals LW, what does it stand for? We've seen this one before. Area equals length times width, right? Area of a rectangle? Okay. This is the one we memorized. We know area equals length times width. But I could solve this for L by dividing W over. It's still the same formula, it just looks different. Okay? So the first one was solved for A, this one is solved for L. I could have solved it for W by dividing an L over and have A divided by L equals W. Same formula, but now it's solved for W. So that's our process today, just taking a formula and solving for a different variable. Okay? All right, so first one, we've seen this one before. P equals 2W plus 2L. What is that for? That's perimeter, right? Perimeter of a rectangle? All right, if I want to solve for L, I basically have to move everything else to the other side. All right? But we have to think about how we would solve a normal equation. If I were thinking of that L as my variable and everything else was numbers, the first piece I would move is this 2W. I'd subtract it to the other side. Okay? We still have to do that. So we're going to subtract 2W over here, and we have 2L left. Then what's the last thing I have to get rid of? The 2. How do I get rid of it? I divide, because right now it's being multiplied to L, so I want to divide both sides by 2. My final answer would look like that. Okay, now, a lot of students want to cancel those 2's. You can't do that, because the P also is being divided by the 2. If you want to reduce it, you could simplify and say P is being divided by 2, the 2W is being divided by 2, and we just have 1W. That would be equivalent. But I'm fine with you stopping right there. Okay? This one actually seems more simplified to me, just easier to look at. Okay? Second question. We're solving for G. I'm going to rewrite this so we have the fraction more as a normal fraction here. Okay? We're trying to get G by itself. So what am I going to have to move out of there? The 1/4 and the n. How are they being attached to the G? Multiplication. How do we undo multiplication? Division. So we're going to have to use division to move those out of the way. But dividing by 1/4 is the same as doing what? Multiplying by the 4. Yep. So if we times both sides by 4, we get this. Okay. How do I now get rid of the n? Divide it over. So 4c divided by n will give me G. All right. Question 3. N equals CGU. I'm trying to solve for C. What do I have to move? The G and the U. How am I going to move them? Can I divide them all at the same time? Yep. I can take that whole quantity and divide it over. So N is going to get divided by the GU, and we'll have C left over. All right. Go ahead and do question 4. All right, how did you get D by itself? Okay, let's divide out the 2 pi. Okay. Question 5. We're trying to solve for n. Now there's a couple things on the same side with n. There's a g that's being multiplied to n, and there's a z that's being added to it. How do we undo that? In what order would we undo that? Yes, subtract the z over first, and then we can divide the g out. Okay. Question 6. Why are there parentheses around the s plus b? Okay, it's indicating multiplication. We have a 1/3 and an h that's supposed to be multiplied to that. But we are trying to get s by itself. Okay, so rather than distribute the 1/3 h in, can we just divide it to the other side? Get rid of it? All right, so dividing the 1/3 was really doing what? Multiplying by 3. Okay, then we can divide the h to the other side. And now, because I've gotten rid of everything that was in front that required me to have parentheses, I don't need them anymore. All right, and now I'm able to separate the s and the b. So to get s by itself, we would have to do what? Subtract the b. So we have this 3c being divided by h, and then we're going to subtract a b to get s. Okay? Questions on those so far? All right. How is this one different? We've got k equals 2mn plus 2ml, and we're solving it for m. There's two different m's. All right? You're going to encounter several examples of this. The trick to doing this is to get the m's to be 1. All right? We have to have them as a single m in order to solve for it. So, what you're going to do when you look at an equation that has the variable you're trying to solve for in 2 spots, make sure everything that has that variable is on one side, and if it doesn't, move it to the other side. Okay? In this example, the only 2 things on the right-hand side have m in them, so we're going to leave them there. Your next step is to factor the m out. So picture dividing m out of this 2mn. What would be left? The 2n, okay? If we divide it out of the 2ml, we have a 2l left. Now, how is m being attached to that whole mess in parentheses? It's being multiplied. Can we divide this whole mess in the parentheses to the other side? Yes? All right, so we're going to have k divided by 2n plus 2l equaling m. So it doesn't have a lot of steps. It's just that trick of getting the m factored out so that you can get rid of the other parts. Okay? Question 8's a little bit different because what we are trying to solve for is in the denominator. When we solve for it, it has to be in the numerator. All right? So, first option here, I have an f minus w. I can't simply add f or w to the other side. I'm going to have to multiply this whole chunk. All right, f minus w, I'm going to multiply it to the left side. All right, so now it's going to look like this. Okay. Now, some students want to distribute the a. You don't need to. We need to get rid of the a. Right? We don't want it on that side. So can we divide it over to the other side? So now we have f minus w equals b divided by a. And then to get rid of the w, add it over. All right. Any questions so far? The last example that we have, there's a couple different ways we could go about this. The variable we're trying to solve for is on the bottom. We need it to be in the numerator. We can't simply flip this whole thing over The only time we can do that is if we have a proportion where we have one fraction equal to one fraction. Then we can flip the whole thing over. But in this case, on the left side, we have two separate fractions. So we would either have to get common denominators and get that together as one fraction, and then flip it, or our other option is just, let's get rid of all those denominators right away. We've done this technique before when we've been solving equations. If we multiply everything by our LCD, it's going to get rid of all those fractions, correct? What's the LCD? Yeah, I need all three of them. I need a D, a B, and a Z. I'm going to times everything by that. All right, so when I distribute that to the first fraction, the D's should drop out, and I have a BZ left over. When I distribute it to the second fraction, the B's are going to drop out, so I have a D and a Z. And when I distribute it to the third fraction, the Z's drop out, I have a D and a B. Okay? Now, what variable are we solving for? Z. There's two different Z's. So I'm going to factor it out. That leaves me B plus D as the other factor. And then can I divide that whole set of parentheses to the other side? Yes? All right. So Z would equal D times B divided by B plus D. All right? So all you're going to be doing today is rearranging formulas, solving for that specific variable. Your assignment is on page 135. You're going to do 55 to 74.